Good evening, everyone. I am Ravi Gupta. I am a founder and CEO of an organization called Illets Technomedia. We are a 17-year-old media and research organization, and we have been publishing a magazine called Digital Learning for past 16 years. And our magazine has been focusing on innovations in education, preschool, school, and higher education. And we have been conducting several conferences all across India, outside India, for last 2 decades. We have reached out to more than 100 cities in India and more than 10 to 15 cities outside India, and done a lot of workshops, conferences on innovation in education. So today we are having another interesting panel online right now, and this panel is going to discuss on can COVID-19 spur education 4.0. And to discuss this interesting topic, we have a very interesting set of speakers. We are honored to have them here. I welcome you all the speakers, and we are right now live on the Facebook page of Illets and Facebook page of Digital Learning Magazine. And I welcome all the people who have joined us here on Zoom and also on Facebook to watch this session live. So I am going to request each of the panelists to please introduce yourself in 2 minutes brief, and then we will start our set of questions. So I will request Dr. Anand to start with.
Very good evening to you all. I am Dr. Anand Valerao, Principal of Bharati Vidyapeeth University, College of Engineering, Pune. I am also Dean of Faculty of Engineering and Technology. Bharati Vidyapeeth University is one of the oldest university in India. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining, Dr. Anand.
Yeah.
Best Shreyasi Singh to please introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Ravi, for inviting me here. My name is obviously Shreyasi Singh, and I'm one of the founders of Harappa Education and the company CEO. We're essentially a very new online learning institution where we teach courses on cognitive, social, and behavioral skills, largely aimed at young professionals, because we feel that these are the workplace skills that you really need beyond your technical and functional skills. I'm very, very delighted and privileged to be in this august company with sort of, luminaries of the education world, and very humble that I can represent Harappa in this company. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Shreyasi. May I request Dr. Yusuf to please introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Yusuf. I am the president of Rochester Institute of Technology in Dubai, which is an international branch of RIT from New York, Rochester. We are a government university sponsored by the government in order to create talents in areas in smart cities, artificial intelligence, data analytics to meet the aspirations of the country and the region. I am an electrical engineer by profession. I finished my PhD from Oxford University, and my area of specialization is smart cities.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. May I request Dr. Ketan to introduce yourself, please?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Ketan Kotecha. I'm Dean of Engineering at Symbiosis International University. I'm also Director of Symbiosis Institute of Technology. The university is a very high-ranking university in NIRF, and Category 1 university is declared by UGC. There are several faculties within the university, starting from management, law, humanities, medicine is recently started, and engineering is one of them. My own specialization is artificial intelligence. I run a center for applied artificial intelligence at Symbiosis. I did my PhD from IIT Mumbai.
Fantastic. May I request Dr. KP Isaac to kindly introduce yourself?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Ravi, for giving us an opportunity to be part of this webinar. See, currently I'm the Vice Chancellor of the Hindustan Institute of Technology and Science, which is a deemed university based out in Chennai, with all specializations programs being run in engineering, architecture, law, management, liberal arts, and all, with about 7,000 students and 500 faculty with focus on research and innovation. See, prior to joining as the Vice Chancellor of this university. I was the founder Vice Chancellor of the Kerala Technological University, which is an affiliating university of the state of government of Kerala. And prior to that, I was the member secretary of the All India Council for Technical Education, basically a teacher.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Isaac. May I request Dr. R.D. Patidar to kindly introduce yourself.
Hi, good evening, everyone. At the outset, I thanks to ILETS for giving me an opportunity. I'm Dr. R.D. Patidar, Vice Chancellor of OP Jindal University, Raigad. This is the University of Jindal Steel and Power Limited Group. And university is located in the central India in the Chhattisgarh. And one of the very pioneer university of the central India. And I'm here in the university since 2012. I joined here as a professor and currently working as a vice chancellor of the university. My background is electrical engineer and I did my PhD from IIT Roorkee.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining. Now, I will start the panel discussion. So there is an unprecedented halt seen in the education sector due to the corona the situation, and a paradigm shift can be witnessed in the education sector. Now the question is that what are the challenges for colleges in this pandemic? Please share your initial comments for 2 minutes each. So I am going to change the order a bit. So I will Dr. Isaac to start.
Oh, thank you for giving me an opportunity to start or initiate the discussions probably. I would start with the quotation by Winston Churchill in 1942 during the World War II. The quotation is like this: "This is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end, but it is perhaps the end of the beginning."
Wow.
So I do not know where we stand with respect to COVID pandemic in India or in the world. So this is something which, if you look at it, I would say that the policy, we have got to have a policy to fight against this coronavirus. See, basically we are fighting to minimize the mortality, so recover from economic slowdown, to improve our social life, and basically what we are now going to discuss is the next one is continue education and skill development. And what are the research and development efforts by the universities to end the crisis? And I mean, basically what we do is to manage the crisis. Basically, what are the R&D efforts which we can do as universities to end the crisis is something which we have got to do on the policy framework. And how do we continue the education and skill development in this country? I think the focus has to be, our discussion should be focused on how we can continue the education and the skill development, how we do it on an online, how we do it on a blended education, or basically the idea is to minimize the mortality and recover from the economic slowdown, right? So this is what I just wanted to do it. I mean, just to start that. So what we do it in this is the online education is the one which we give more importance right at the moment because we have no other alternative. How long we will continue? When can we open the universities? The UGC has already mentioned that we will start in August, September. I do not know when we are going to start. If so, what is the situation? How do we tackle? I think what are the steps each universities will take? I think we will come in later because 2 minutes is the time.
Yes. So I will request Shayasi to please speak on this subject. Yes.
The question was, what are the challenges?
In this situation, and what are the challenges for colleges in this pandemic situation? Yeah.
So So obviously, you know, we are not a physical offline college. So I think all of the other people on the panel will certainly have, you know, immediate, but of course, you know, we acquire learner cohorts through our relationships with offline institutions, right? And with campuses. And I mean, I think the challenges are obviously quite, the obvious challenges are obviously there. I think as an online educator, I think the challenge that I see is I don't think we all know, and this is including Harappa, we still don't know what is the perfect format in which an online class or an online pedagogy has to be constructed. And so we're all trying, and I think hats off to educators across the country. You know, I'm also a parent, I have a son. I know how his school has scrambled to get this, and obviously higher education faculty as well do that, right? But I don't know if we know what online pedagogy is and how it differs, right? Second, I don't think we understand yet, obviously, enough about student behavior, student psychology, and students' interaction with technology and how those different learning formats work. I think on assessment, on proctoring, I think there is a lot of challenges, of course, there as well that, you know, this new format has shown for us. And I think last challenge, and then I'll of course let, you know, the others come in. The last challenge really is because, and I think the quote by Dr. Isaac was so evocative, the one from Winston Churchill, is we don't know what to be ready for because we don't know how much will change, how soon it will change, who all will change how much, and how much of what we had before we can keep and how much will have to be thrown. So I think the next 3 months is just of a question of managing flux and ambiguity. And I think flux and ambiguity poses all the challenges that it does.
Fantastic. So I will rapidly move to the questions, which is the next one, because as someone said that the first question is a generic one and the answer might be the same.
Ravi, can I add in this one? A small point need to be addressed in this.
Briefly,
yeah. Very briefly, the present economy of India is the most important thing, which has a direct impact on education also. As we know that the economy will be either in the V-shaped or L-shaped. V-shaped means drastically it will down and come and drastically it may go up, or L-shaped means drastically it will come down and will continue at the lower pace. If we get the fiscal stimulations enough, then we can go up. And IMF, World Bank, as well as Vijay Kelkar, economist, says that we have the potential of going up. If this happens, if the purchasing power of common man is increased, the demand will increase, the production will increase, the production will increase, then the recruitment will also increase, and that is actually the future of all educational institutions. So if we follow this way, I think then this is the one of the challenge actually. Other challenges, other speakers have already shared.
Sure. Thank you. So now the question is that how COVID-19 has reshaped higher education. So I will start with Dr. Yusuf. Please respond.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Gupta. Actually, higher education had many problems even before COVID-19. As you know, Industry 4 actually reshaped everything, and suddenly we have jobs, new jobs, and we are not really preparing students for the new market. At the same time, you know, the public entities like the Ministry of Work, they say, look, we regulate jobs, but we don't create jobs. And when you look at the industry as well, they expect students to be ready, and they are not really prepared to go the extra mile in preparing them. So those students, they ended up with nobody's really taking care of them. And still many universities, they are going through the classical way of teaching, not preparing students for the future. That was before COVID-19. And many of us, as people in charge of universities, we were pushing faculty and other people in order to adopt technology, to adjust the education, to really be prepared for the future. And you'll find sometimes the faculty actually are the main obstacle for this because they like their comfort zone and they would like to teach and go home. And we started to see changes, small changes at many universities that people, they are adopting new technologies and etc. in order to solve the problem. And suddenly COVID-19 came. Now, COVID-19 accelerated things, but it created many issues which people are still handling. How do you conduct exams? How do we conduct labs? What happens to our co-op program? And what importance to our engagement with the public entities and the private sectors. Those are stopped. Now, the problem which I see as we move into the future, we don't want COVID-19 solutions to be taken for granted that these are the best solutions to move on, because these are solutions that created an normal situation and will not continue to be that situation. And we don't want to end up with autism of learning, where students, they feel, okay, I can learn from home, even I don't have to go to the school. And this is going to be a problem. So I think it's an opportunity, but we have to be careful that we learn from it in the right way in order to sustain the future of making the university much more innovative, addressing and preparing the future students for the job market.
Sure. Fantastic. May I request Dr. Ketan to please respond on this? How reshaped higher education? Yeah, please.
So we were, as I agree with the professor earlier, that the problems were there earlier as well, where it was a classroom teaching, but now the reshaping has been done because of the uncontrolled situation, and there are a lot of positive things has happened. For example, we were always talking about flexible teaching learning for the students, but we are always talking about teacher or students always prefer the technology videos, and then now we have started giving that video lecturing to them. We're always talking about, let's say, even open book examinations, which we generally were not conducting for every subject once they were physically in the classrooms. But now there is no choice. And that's what I think several universities like us also have started with open book examinations. Ultimately, online examination needs to be open book examinations. So there are a lot of changing have been done, which I am seeing is positive. Of course, that is not the replacement of the physical teaching learning. But what will happen is, there were some positives about the teaching learning in the classroom. And now we are learning, because necessity is the mother of invention. We are learning some new challenges and we are solving in a new way. After COVID, I think blend of both of them will give us a better solution of teaching learning, which was a physical classroom. There were some advantages, and now online teaching learning, there are a large number of advantages I see, because the way in which students are giving the feedback right now. And after COVID, I think the blend of both will give a better solution for the higher education institutes.
May I request Dr. R.D. Patidar to respond? Yeah.
Good evening. Yeah, I do agree with the earlier speakers that the COVID has impacted almost all the sectors, and education also impacted highly by the COVID. The three most important areas which needs immediate care because of this COVID, and the educational institutions or the higher education is reshaped. One area is of course to maintain or to continue the teaching learning process, and for that most of the institutions shifted from classroom teaching to the online teaching, and for that there are so many platforms are available. The second reshaping is and the impact is on the how to conduct the online examination and the correct assessment and evaluation. This is the biggest challenge before the universities and the institutions. See, some of the institutions with excellent IT infrastructure and facilities may be able to conduct the online examinations, but it is very difficult for all the institutions to conduct the online examination. So this is another challenge before the higher education, especially I'm coming to the first point. The theoretical classes, it's very easy to conduct the online, but it's difficult to manage the practical classes, especially in the programs, even engineering, management, and science. So some of the institutions, even in our institutions, we are we are using the virtual laboratory software, which is provided by the ICT, and up to certain level, we are trying to conduct the practicals online. But it's really a very, very biggest challenge before the technical institutions. Third most important challenge in the coming days, the institutions, especially the higher education, will face is, and which is staring in the eyes of the academician, is the admission, especially the private sector and private universities and the institutions, because the COVID has lot of impact on the admission cycle also. Number one is there is a delay, and second, there is a positive side also. See, 5 lakhs, 7 lakhs 50,000 Indian students studying abroad in 90 countries, and every year around 2 lakhs students will go for the higher study in the abroad for in many countries. So I don't think this year the students will go abroad for the higher study. So these students will be accommodated in the Indian universities. And second, within the country, in the today's scenario, there are 3 different zones are identified by the government. One is the red zone, yellow zone, and the green zone. And especially the biggest cities like Mumbai, Delhi, Noida, Gurgaon, Indore, Jaipur, Ahmedabad, they are highly affected due to this COVID. So the institutions falls in these cities will suffer more, particularly this year, especially for their admissions. And the institution which belongs to green zone in small cities, like a district place or in the small town, they may get with branded institutions belong to these locations may get additional advantage because of the COVID. These are some of the observations, and I do fully agree with Dr. Anand that the biggest impact of COVID on every factor, every area, even in the education, is on the economy. If we are able to manage economy, everything will be managed nicely. Yeah.
Yes. May I request Dr. Anand to please respond on this?
Yes, sir. I have some different view on this one.
Sure.
Importance of face-to-face education, though it cannot be eliminated, it is now reduced. Institutions till date not at all well prepared for this type of infrastructure because they have never seen or they have never forecasted this type of problems. So now institutions have to build the IT infrastructure to deliver the academics in the digital mode. We should accept the concept of learning anywhere, anytime. Once we accept this concept, I think there will be great help to large students community. At the same time, when lectures are available in the video form, so that the classroom time can be used for other creative work. Student can come with the prepared set, they can watch the videos, they can learn that whatever teacher is going to teach, and the classroom time which is available that can be used for a very creative way, so we can make our students more employable, more contributory, and we can add more skills to them because that time is available for us this time. At the same time, I would like to make one statement very boldly here that the council, AICTE, should accept this system now, that online education is now the mandatory part. I mean, we cannot avoid that. We have to use that one. So council should accept this system and rework on faculty requirement in the physical form. That how many faculty should be in a physical form and how many can work in the online, which will be very useful for the universities also. The online test, assignments, all these things will save a lot of time of faculty members also. Yes. And they can focus more on the research, which will add value to the respective university or institutions.
Yes, great point. Thank you all the panelists. Now we will move to the next question, which is regarding will online education be a potential option in higher education? So let me ask Shreya Singh about it. Yeah.
I completely agree with Dr. Anand and sort of, salute his very evolved and I think progressive views. Really, I think absolutely. I think we all of us understand that. And of course, I don't think there is a substitute to some elements of meeting both your faculty as well as your peers, right? And being in that community, I think none of us would want a substitute. As an online first educator, that is not my idea of perfection as well. I think what this has done, it will change is because I think whether it's this platform, whether it's institutions like ours talking much more, I think institutions like ours saying, what can we learn from each other? And I think this changing the mindset to what online education can really help the free up the faculty from the burden of grunt work and so much scheduling, calendaring, and MCQ questions that are still being checked by hand is completely work that can go on. 101 subjects, absolutely, I think. It will change completely, because I think that time also, from the way that the world is changing so quickly and the technology and the shifts is happening so quickly, the fact is we cannot have a system in which everybody stops education at 23 and never come back to it. I think where online learning truly help is create many more multiple entry points and exit points out of education. So as a founder and CEO, I was a journalist before. I've had to learn so much as an entrepreneur. I don't have the luxury as also a working mother to leave everything and go and study entrepreneurship and financial management to do what I have to do. I have learned everything that I have to learn and new things that I have to learn all of the time because I have done courses myself online, right? So I think from what happens to your learning from 23 to 65, I feel like we think of higher education only from 18 to 23, but it really exists for all of us for much longer. So I think its biggest benefit will be this multiple access points, variety of content, variety of learning programs that adults all from across their 40 years of their working life can come into, and truly free physical interaction for it to be rich and highly stimulating and hands-on. So I think in that two ways, which will really change, great for learners. I think there is just so much autonomy, there is so much flexibility, and most importantly, there's so much choice.
Yeah. May I request Dr. Ketan to respond on this?
Yeah, so the question is, this online education will be beneficial right now, right? So you see, why we go for education? Ultimately, we will to build up our competencies, right? So I agree with the Shreyasi that suppose I'm working somewhere and I want to learn something new. Then only way is to go online and study that. So there, people are talking about micro degrees as well. In one of the European conference, I learned that people are now going to give micro degrees. I'm an engineer, but if I want to start my own startup, I don't know, engineering institutions hardly teach that. So I can go online, get a course from some particular MOOC, and I learn that. So this kind of things will emerge now. As opposed to the going to engineering colleges or any other colleges for 4 years. And I really appreciate the idea of anytime in and anytime exit. That should be, and I'm sure the new education policy also talks about that. If you take an engineering admission, if you take out after 1 year, if you drop out, it's like a certificate. After 2 years, if you drop out, there will be a diploma kind of. So that is the way of life. And then after dropout in an industry, once you are working, if you need to rescale yourself, then you go online and study. But only the problem right now, the education institutes or faculties are facing, they are not going so much online because possibly there is a fear that they'll be replaced by the technology. But I would say that technology won't replace teachers. It is impossible. But I would say teachers who use the technology effectively will definitely replace the teachers who are not using the technology.
That's a good one.
So that is the point right now.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Ketan. May I request Dr. R.D. Patidar to please respond?
Yeah, I do agree with the earlier speaker again. Yeah, this online teaching is, of course, very relevant, required, important. But I do agree with Dr. Anand that it could be a supplement. It can never be a replacement of the classroom teaching. See, a 6-inch monitor can never be the replacement of 6 feet blackboard. So yes, of course, this online teaching is very important. And last 1 month in our institution also, all the faculty members are reoriented their way of teaching, and they are trying their best. But I would like to share my observation of last one and a half month, that in the initial phase of online teaching, when we started after the unplanned declaration of closing of the institution and further the declaration of the lockdown and further extension of the lockdown, during this period, initially the teachers, students they face a lot of problems regarding the connectivity, the bandwidth, and many of the students, they left their laptops in the hostel, so they were facing a lot of problems. But fortunately, the students were staying with their parents. So anyhow, they are able to manage by taking the mobiles of the parents, and they are attending the classes. So one of the positive side is that the attendance improved in the online classes as compared to the classroom
Yes.
teaching. But the effectiveness of the classroom online teachings is really not up to the mark. Up till now, we can say
Okay.
it is 60% effectiveness as compared to the classroom teaching. And second thing, which I would like to mention here, which is very important, is the the classroom online teachings are not such interactive. It's because many of the teachers are using Zoom or some other platforms and for a limited time, and it's really very difficult the interaction with the students in a short span of time. So I think there are a lot of disadvantages also, but yes, there are certain advantages also. So what I would like to tell is we should go for the blended mode of teaching in after the post-COVID. There should be some online classes, and there should be some face-to-face interaction on the same topic. The faculty must behave as a facilitator rather than the regular teacher. This is
Combination.
Sure, sure. And we will move next. That colleges and recruiters are in limbo over placements. How colleges will deal with it? Dr. Yusuf, you can start this.
If you allow me, I would like to comment on the previous question.
Sure, sure, sure.
And then I'll come to this question. You know,
Sure.
when we design universities, especially in the future, I think there are major two things which we should really focus on: access and impact. Giving access to many people to the education, whether they are actually in the city, outside the city, working, not working, have access to technology, limited or not. Give access to more people, and this will be judged, and we are going to be judged by giving opportunities to many people through the technology. At the same time, the other one is impact. The idea of the university, you have really, no matter what you use, online, blended, whatever, is the impact of your graduates when they go to the market. And this has to be measured. And I think this is the accreditation ministry worry, that you can adopt technology as technology is an enabler at the end of the day. It doesn't really dictate and does not lead. You use it the way you like. It could be positive, not positive. Many people, they use the online education, but we agree that they will lead to nowhere. Some of them actually, they use it in a good way to impact students. As long as we have measures for access and impact, then actually online is good as long as it really feeds into this. And when we design anything, always we have to remember why we are doing it. Many people, they are just rush into technologies, they use technology, it's easy for them, faculty, maybe it's easier, they can teach from home, but is the right thing for the institution or the students? Maybe it is not the right thing for them. We have faculty, they are not into technology. I mean, we have faculty, they teach art courses. Sometimes technology to them is a problem. So I think when we design the university, I think the best thing is we allow online education as long as it really gives benefits. And the university becomes a community center where students, they go there in order to meet other students, meet faculty, do innovate, test, use labs, mingle with the community. So at the end of the day, the whole university will become a blended university where it's a community center for the people to learn from each other, and online complements that rather than being a goal by itself. Now, regarding recruitment, RIT is facing a problem because at the end of the day, the parents, they don't know what will happen. Is it going to be online, not online? Are we going to come? Can our kids travel to the country, come to Dubai and study and what have you? And at the moment, we are testing the water. We say, okay, we are going to have fall semester completely online as an option. And that allows students from outside the country and inside the country. And we tell them this is going to happen. But at the same time, we could have it blended where we'll have online classrooms, but faculty, students, they can join from their countries if they cannot make it into the semester. And the last option is face-to-face, which is a completely face-to-face. So I think to us, recruitment at the moment, if I compare numbers, we are above last year. in recruiting students. So it didn't really change the number of students applying because all of them, they want education. But what will happen in the fall semester? To them, it's a worry for us, it's a worry for them. So recruitment now, when they ask this question, the immediate answer, we don't know, but we will be flexible in order to accommodate your needs, whether you stay at home or you come to the campus.
May I request Shiasi to respond on this?
I think, well, if we're talking about recruitment and placement for students,
Yes.
right?
Yes, yes.
I think, well, that is clearly a function of how the economy does, what recoveries happen. I think what kind of jobs will get created, what industries will completely get eliminated, at least in the short term. And if a campus had a greater dependency on that industry, for example, those will be hit. I don't think there is much that anyone can do because obviously, I think in Q1, Q2, we know that there will not be enough jobs. And I doubt in any campuses, but again, the rest of the people here will be better suited. I think what is certainly going to happen is, I think there is already a conversion problem in campuses in India. I think institutions actually do a pretty good job of getting high quality recruiters to campus, but see that their students struggle to convert some interviews. Right. And I think that's going to happen even much more. I think it's really the good students who are going to, that is going to become wider from people who, sat in an interview and finally managed to convert it. I think that is certainly going to, I think, highlight some of the skill gap from a workplace perspective. Recruiters will also be looking for people who can completely get off the ground and hit the ground running, because they will hire for much more, I think, immediate requirements rather than, bench strength and things like that. So again, I think there will be whatever on the audience. I think one thing, just to comment on all of the conversations that was happening online, I think I'd like us to remember that we are at the stage of the black and white movie in online content. I think just because we've all had to overnight respond and go to Zoom and feel like that is the entire landscape of possibilities that education technology has, would not be correct, right? And I think we're just starting, much like universities or the Gurukul system started and became large universities. It is a new medium, right? And I think mediums go through so many iterations before they get better. So it was without sound movie black and white, with sound black and white, then you get whatever, then you're now doing HD, and now you're streaming HD on your phone. So I think there is going to be that generational improvements in when you start building online first content, right? So I would, I think all of us are not to be disheartened with what online seems like now. I think there could be much more. And similarly, I think a very acute understanding then of which is actually done, what is actually done better online and what can't be done online, and which is much better done by the community model, right? But to just come back to the question on placements, much less conversions to actual job offers. Some kinds of job offers won't happen, as some industries just won't hire. Some usual recruiters will not be present, and the skill gap will become even more apparent.
Sure. May I request?
May I add something?
Yeah.
Yeah, so my view here is slightly different. What I feel, the way in which India has tackled this issue as of now, we are growing towards superpower, and I feel that there are more opportunities coming up. Of course, the immediate there will be some downtrend, but as Dr. Anand was telling, V-shape, so we'll drastically bounce back. And particularly our majority is circuit oriented jobs like IT, computer and all that is possible anyway from online and from home. And as I read in the news recently, there are thousands of other companies from other countries that are planning to shift to India as a manufacturing companies here. So I see a short duration, there may be obviously downtrend, but very fast I think we will recover and there are more opportunities. And I always go with that. When the computers were invented, people were always telling, that because there'll be ATM and then there is no job in the bank. But I think there are maximum jobs are available in financial sectors. So, there is, I think, new opportunity. There will be a shift in the job. you may not get a job for the, as a pilot in the aircraft because people will travel less, or you will not get and make my trip. But I think you will get more jobs in developing an online software or online content. Maybe Shreyasi will offer more jobs. So like that, there will be shift in the job, but I don't think jobs will go away at all.
Sure. Dr. Anand, your response?
Yeah. As far as placement is concerned, we should see from the institution's point of view. If you consider the academic year, the placement session starts from July, August onwards and normally continue up to January, February. So this year's placement scenario, in all colleges, it was practically over. 1 or 2, 3, 4 companies were about to come. And so the placement scenario is over. But only the question is of honoring the offers.
Yes.
So somehow it was clicked in my mind in the first week of March only, that something may go wrong, and we must approach to these recruiters. So we have approached to all the companies, and very nicely 80 companies of that which have came here. Actually 120 company came. Out of that, 80 companies have responded to us that we are going to honor the offers. Though they are in limbo, what you are saying is right, though they are in limbo, but they are ready to honor the offers. But only what they have said is that joining may be delayed. So it is possible joining may be delayed. One more thing which I would like to add in that one is companies may change their offers also, may change offers in the form of the financial gains, because they also suffered from this impact, and the requirement may be reduced. So with the concept of honoring the offers, they may go for the lesser salary, lesser pay structures, but they will honor all these things. In next year of time, it may affect, definitely. But 2021, again, we will come back, I'm sure that. And as Ketan has said, yes, job opportunities will change. There are many other sectors. I have listed a few sectors. If I get the time in the next question, I can spell out that in which sector the job opportunities are possible now. So that is possible.
Sure. Taking cue from Dr. Anand, who is talking about the next year. Now there is another challenge which is called internships.
Yes.
So how you are going to deal internships now? So may I request, let's start with Dr. Isaac, your response.
Yeah. So thank you. Can I just touch upon this online just a little bit on that?
Yeah,
because sure. Why I wanted to tell is that, see, actually, when you talk about online education, two things. One is that to circumvent the issue which has been created by COVID now. That's one. Second is that we are examining whether the online education can be a substitute to the brick and mortar university. The two things are different here. So the second question is that whether online education will continue as a substitute for the university system which is prevalent now. It's a question which has to be answered separately. But right now, this online mode of education, which most of the universities are practicing to a certain extent. If I take my example, when we closed down in March, we have a 75% syllabus were covered, 25%. This 25% we covered in a systematic manner with, actually we had the advantage of the software and things like that, like Microsoft Teams. So first 15 days on a random way, but the last 15 days of this month, today we closed, which was on a regular timetable. We could, the teachers could deliver the lectures. So that was on a face-to-face mode. So that was, the way the students also, as somebody pointed out, I think Kevin has, Dr. Patidar has pointed out that the attendance is more than a regular class. See, this is something to tide over the problem now. But when you talk about a university system, there's one thing which you have to understand is that the university system where we meet, the students meet and the teachers meet together, the peer interaction, the human interaction has to be given more importance. The other thing is like the teamwork. Then the practical, that is the one which requires the laboratory. The laboratory is the space where things are being developed, the research is being carried out. Now, coming to that industry engagement, this is something which now I just wanted to put on that. This industry engagement is not happening because it should have happened during these 2 months of June, May, June, July. This is a period where most of the students go for internship. So this is practically it's not happening because industries are not functioning, but there are a few industries probably might be supporting the students an online basis also, which is acceptable at the moment, though it's not going to give you the real picture of the industries to the students. So this is one of the essential things as far as an engineering student is concerned. Maybe I would say that a computer science student, a computer science and engineering student could do it on an online mode. But I mean, if you want to get a training in a car manufacturing unit or any manufacturing unit, you have to be with the industry where how things are being shaped. But one thing which I found here in this process is that, see, we wanted, because we have the software and the hardware, everything ready with us, we have started inviting industry experts to give online lectures of the state of the art in the industry. And I would say that that has been successful. During the last 15 days, we have got about 150 lectures delivered. That was something which is great. So that is an industry interaction which has really happened, though we could not do a real industry engagement for the students during this summer internship or whatever we say. But a limited extent would have happened through the online, maybe computer science, management. That is possible with certain companies, not all, because most of the companies are not working. So there is a setback right at the moment, which could be, I don't know whether, I mean, if the students in the final year know, the others, I mean, naturally they don't get into that. The third year students may get a time sooner or later, how things shape, we will have to find out. So that can be done. So the internship is a real issue which could be done by this kind of lectures online by the industry people, as well by having maybe a little later, I don't know how it gets taped, whether it's the beginning or the end, we have to see. So that is how things will have to be modeled over a period of time. So, shall I continue, Dr. Ravi? Some problem with Dr. Ravi is one or? Yeah. See, I also wanted to tell you the certain departments in my university in Sudan, they develop some gadgets for the industries, like the robot, which can assist the healthcare industry, like the, I mean, it's not the replacement. They could, the robot could assist the doctors and the nurses to deliver the medicines and get the readings taken and things like that. So it's robot assisted machines, I mean, could be done by the department people. So that is something which has helped them in an industrial production line. See, we have supplied in Chennai, they have already supplied 5 such units to hospitals, government hospitals. See, the students and the faculty also help the, I mean, we have the aeronautical engineering, they have done the drones for surveillance for the police. So all this helped the students in developing their, I mean, though it's a direct industry attachment, they could get a flare of how things are happening in such places, how things can be done. So there are certain other things which the students could participate, but with the available only this within the limitations of the rule and how the lockdown and things like that, only we can work at the moment.
Until Dr. Gupta comes, let me give 3 ideas which we did for internship during this time of COVID. The first one is we allowed students to help faculty in research during this time, and this can be counted as part of their course. but they have really to have a clear mandate with an objective, and there is a little bit of experimentation can be done. The second one is we actually did workshops for students in order to prepare them to become consultants. And the faculty will go to industry and bring problems, and usually we give it for free. But students will be working in creating solutions in this boot camp, and this will be counted to them as part of their co-op because of the COVID-19. The third one is some students already, they had ideas of starting their own business. And we said, okay, if you now work on starting up your business and make a proposal and go through the challenges of starting a business, that could be counted as part of your co-op program. But Doctor, thank you very much. Actually, this idea of having lectures from experts and you count it as part of the co-op program, I think this is a great idea which we can use.
Actually,
I wish to add something about the internships. I think internships in the industry may be difficult this time. So we all will have to, I mean, academic institutions will have to design the internships, in-house internships, which may be some online courses, maybe some experimentations, maybe writing some articles, or maybe creating the presentations on selected topics, such well-designed internship where student can be engaged for 4 to 6 weeks. We have to design this type of internships, and in-house internships we will have to work out.
Sir, I'd like to come in here to say we've actually, and this is one of the big needs that we heard from all campuses over the last 3 or 4 weeks, and we've actually come out with an virtual internship program, as if we're calling it. So essentially a combination, exactly as you were suggesting, all of you, of 3 things. Give them some skills so that the online courses are there. You can do some live master classes, and we're tying up with institutions or companies, whether it's Startup India or a health tech firm, which are actually suddenly
Yeah, I think there is a power cut there. So
There may be
similarly, we are also planning to give some particular courses to the students and some particular virtual labs which are available from IITs and all. So to cope up with this, of course, there is no direct substitute of going to actual manufacturing industry and actually modeling their hands. Absolutely, there is no direct substitution, but we are trying to balance that as well.
I would like to add one more point that good number of our students are accommodated in the AICT Internshala internship scheme.
Yes.
And we are also doing in-house way of internship for our students. But yes, this is the biggest challenge before all the universities and institutions, especially for the engineering and management and the science institutions, to conduct the internship of the students, because the good placement is just because of the good internship of the students. And I do agree with Dr. Anand on the previous question that this particular year, the placement cycle were basically over in the month of January, February, and 80 to 90% students in most of the institutions are placed. In our university also around 80-90% students are placed in reputed corporates up to Feb end. And the most important thing is the biggest fallout of this COVID-19 is also on the job crisis. And yes, it is true that some of the companies are withdrawing their pre-placement offers, and there is a possibility of delaying. And also, as I fully agree with Dr. Anand that they may change the financial terms in the when they will reissue the offer letter to the students. So there is a possibility. But particularly in OP Jindal University, we are fortunate that most of our students are placed in our own group companies. So this is the plus point that we are in continuous touch with the group. Even the group companies also suffering because of the COVID. And there is a possibility of delay of offer letter of the students, but just because of delay of the final year students examination. So what we are doing in internship is, yes, another option is the Internshala. This is the scheme of the ICT, and good number of students are accommodated this year. Second, the creativity kind of jobs we can create in-house. And good number of students presently we have accommodated in our admission teams for developing, designing the creatives and all this kind of works. And really the students are helping in much better way as compared to the previous agency we had for this particular job. So these are some ways, but really this is the biggest challenge. And I still believe that the universities and particularly the students will suffer because of this poor internship during this COVID period.
So let me
Maybe
just
one
come in here. Yeah, sure.
Dr. Ravi, that's one more thing I wanted to tell you about the job opportunities. See, right now there could be the shortage of labor, requirement of manpower. But one thing which you have to understand is that today the requirement of manpower will increase in the health sector. Manufacturing in the health sector, which is very specific to COVID. See, for example, the number of ventilators required in the hospitals have increased. Do we have we got trained or skilled manpower to handle such kind of equipment? So this is something. So when we train our graduates, we should not be focused on a very specific and narrow field. This is happening now. We should make them generic so that they could tackle any kind of problem. So that when today the requirement of job is in health sector, and that will continue for some more time, maybe in pharmacy. So anybody who is trained in a generic area could take up jobs in that. See, the best example could be ventilators. There are a lot of new designs coming. So all this will help to tide over the problem of unemployment, which may be created due to an economic slump. So which can be corrected over a period of time, which will get automatically corrected over a period of time. I think that generic one training for a student to tackle any kind of problems which could be taken up should be the focus of our education.
Sure. So if we all have discussed internship, we will move to the next round. And let me just inform everyone that there's a high-speed wind happening in Noida and Delhi, NCR. And that's why my power was cut and I was off. And that's how I think Shasi has messaged that her apartment power is also off. So I think she will not be able to join. And I understand that Dr. Yusuf, you are supposed to have an appointment and you have some meeting. So if you are okay, like you want to give some remarks and it will be okay.
Well, I would like just only to thank you and Dr. Gupta and thank my colleagues. It was a pleasure meeting and learning from you, and good luck with COVID-19 and the way we run business. And please, let's keep in touch. And if we have ideas, maybe we can create a platform where we can exchange ideas with the panelists and the audience of this webinar. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Yusuf.
Thank you.
Take care, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I will we will move to the next question, which is about what the coming months could bring for engineering colleges. What are the challenges for engineering colleges now? If we can start with Dr. Ketan. You want to start?
Yeah, I can. You see, as everyone has mentioned, there is we don't know what is the end to this and when the COVID is going to subside. But I think learning should not stop, and which is not stopped right now as well. I'm sure all of us are also right now working, and then I'm sure the students are learning from home. So the solution which we have digged out at Symbiosis as an university and as a Symbiosis Institute of Technology as well is we are preparing right now for all subjects for the next semester online with our teacher. Right, we have mandated right now for around 20% of the courses which are completely online, and remaining all courses we are creating 20% of the content online, right? Assuming that even UGC has given a guideline for starting from, let's say, 1st of August, but by the time we'll be knowing that how the situation is improving, and possibly we'll convert entire, course online. Of course, there is no substitute for laboratory. So what we are doing is some of the components where there is a physical experimentation is required. Like we have a very unique Tinker lab in our first year itself. So we are shifting that to the next semester, January semester, because it's our own deemed university. Our university has given a huge flexibility that if there are courses where you require hands-on training, there is no substitute of that, you can shift to the next semester, January. So it's just an, because it's all predictions, we don't know. So that's what from August we'll be starting our semester. We'll be starting with online. Possibly we'll be giving options to the students that those who can come to the classes, okay, those who are unable to come in some particular areas, if at all that is the situation, they can study online as well. But I'm sure we are going to start the education or teaching learning forward in the next semester as well. And of course, I have also advised that there are a lot of virtual labs available, particularly IIT Delhi and all, they have developed a virtual lab, which since long we are using. So I'm sure some of the experimentations are possible there itself. And for subjects in computer engineering and circuit branches, I think it's always online possible to teach or do the experimentation or simulations as well. The questions remains with mechanical and civil engineering, where we are trying to defer their experimentation related subjects or even internships to the next semester.
Can I?
Yes.
I think there are a lot of challenges, and we have to find the opportunities within that. The first, as Dr. Ketan has pointed out, we are also thinking of going, or we have almost decided. We have closed this current semester today, pending the end semester assessment, which also we are planning online to a great extent. But there are problems with the practicals, except for the computer science. The computer science and engineering, we are going to have the laboratory, the virtual labs. Yeah, because we can hire the whole set of things in the Amazon cloud, or so many facilities are available. But the next semester, it's all not good. I mean, whatever we talk is only to tide over the problem. You're not talking this as a permanent solution.
Yes.
That's something which everybody will have to understand. But maybe we may evolve a system which may be a mixture of what is being practiced today and what has been practiced yesterday. That may evolve after some time, but that takes more time. But there is a change which is happening in the education sector. To a great extent, we have blended mode of teaching learning process, but the focus cannot shift from the laboratories. So I would say that the next semester could be, we are proposing to start from June 1st with the online. And the moment things change, we can start it in the universities. See, the problem is that when we start the classes in the universities, if somebody gets COVID, the whole system will again get disrupted. Then we will be in a difficult situation. So we cannot, we have to anticipate that also. So we have to take a wise decision in that extent, when we have got to start. So it's always advisable to start the next semester online. See, this is possible with the autonomous colleges, standalone universities and things like that. But the affiliating system of education, the affiliating colleges and universities, this is going to be a major problem.
True.
Yes.
That problem I do not have, though I have been the Vice Chancellor for an affiliating system. I do not have a clear answer to that, because that university system is somewhat rigid, which will not allow the flexibilities to happen.
Yes.
If that
Coincidentally, the panel is such that we all of us will not have a problem like Symbiosis or Hindustan or others, or DY Patel or others, but I'm sure, he's right that affiliating universities will have a lot of challenges. Of course, they can also solve, but there'll be more challenges for sure.
So that is a challenge, where how that will be solved is something which our country will have to come. See, the UGC should have come out with a clear solution to that. What all UGC said is applicable to all deemed universities, all standalone universities, all fine, just campuses. But for them, it's going to be a challenge. If that is not solved, the major chunk of the system will be outside the scope of education. So this is something which we have got to address. And how do you address that problem is with the help of technology providers, industries, all will have to come out.
May I request Dr. RD to please respond from OP Jindal?
Yeah, I do fully agree with the panelist that during this COVID, we faced a lot of problems, particularly in this semester. When this problem came to India, half of the semester was already completed. So in this particular semester, as far as practical and theory part is concerned, some of the part of the theory and practical were covered in the classroom teaching. And immediately we shifted from classroom teaching to online teaching. This was one of the biggest challenge. So that problem is addressed properly. But yeah, I do fully agree that the institutions will suffer in terms of internship, in terms of project of the students, which we have not discussed so far. The quality of the projects will definitely going deteriorated, and this is area which need more concern, especially the engineering. And I do agree with Dr. Ketan that there are some softwares available in which we can create the virtual laboratories. And most of the institutions, like we all sitting here, we are able to, we all have such kind of softwares, and anyhow we are able to manage the some of the practical classes also. But yes, the biggest challenge was number one, to shift from classroom teaching to the online teaching. That part is managed nicely by all the institutions. Second is the examination and evaluation. And for that, many institutions will suffer. But the institutions like we are sitting here today, again have very good quality of IT infrastructure. So maybe such kind of institutions may able to manage their online examination, particularly in this semester. And third biggest challenge is if the problem will not overcome by the end of August or July or August, then we need to shift for the online classes. We need to continue the online classes for the next semester also. In OP Jindal University, our faculty and we are prepared, even though if the COVID problem will solve and normalcy will come, we will continue for 30 to 40% of our syllabus should be covered through online. And we are going to adopt a blended mode of technique rather than simply 100% classroom teaching. So these are some of the solutions and challenges that we observed during this COVID period.
I have two recommendations also to be made, if possible.
Sure.
Yeah, one, the government of India has a lot of, the ministry had a lot of schemes. One is the August tablet. That means every student should own a tablet or a laptop. This has got to be, on a fast track from now. This has to be given. Every student should have a laptop so that this online education happens in a better way. Second is the connectivity issue. These two things have to be addressed at the government level so that the online education or even the virtual lab, all these things can happen seamlessly.
Well, you know that government of India itself is in trouble because of the situation. There is a fiscal problem with the government had because
fiscal
of
stimulation.
So there is no money for fiscal stimulation because of the lockdown. Kerala has just announced that it is cutting the salary of government employees.
Yes.
The CM has gone on record to say that we don't have money. So all governments are losing money because they are not getting their taxes, the GST from all the factories, the offices, everything. So it's a difficult situation in many ways. So I will move to the next and the last question of this panel. Are Indian colleges equipped to handle the change? So I will start with Dr. Anand. Yes.
Sir, I will say with very confidence, certainly not. None of the colleges, none of the universities, institutions are well equipped for that. We are using the Zoom platform. This itself indicates that we are not prepared for this. And of course, this situation was very abnormal, and nobody has expected this type of situation. And everybody is focusing on the face-to-face education, so we are not well equipped. But the another good thing is that all institutions have now understood the importance of creating this type of infrastructure. As my answer to this, my question will be the part of your earlier question also, the challenges. Sometimes online education looks like a very lucrative, attractive by using laptop, delivering camera and all these things and everything. But it has a lot of challenges. In my point of view, I have divided this online education into the 4 parts. The one is every institute has to select the suitable LMS, that is Learning Management System platform for this. After LMS, you have to select the appropriate lecture delivery mechanism, how to deliver that mechanism. Here now we are using Zoom, somebody is using YouTube and something like that. Then we have to choose the content hosting and how to host that content, whatever had been prepared. And last one is explore and develop online assessment techniques. And at present, for all these 4 sectors of online education, different softwares are being used. And there is no integrated solution of all this. And now, creating mentality of faculty members to use these 4 sectors, integrate it and deliver the lecture is biggest problem.
Yeah, very true.
Teacher has the second important point. Just imagine nobody is there in front of me and I am giving the lecture.
Giving a lecture.
that is a great great challenge.
Yes.
Third thing is see the mentality of students to whom the teacher teaches in the classes also. It is said that the teacher teaches to the front benchers only. The back benchers are sitting for the attendance only. I mean, may not be true in all cases, but it is uniform. Then online lecture, suppose I am delivering online lecture, my student may connect to that one, but I can't say that he is attending lecture or not. So these challenges are, a lot of challenges are there. Another thing is that, see, in our institution, we have more than 3,200 students. Still, I'm not able to connect the at least 400 students. The reason of that one is the network issue, electricity supply issue, many things this takes place. In present webinar also, electricity has gone and somebody has faced the problem. So these are big challenges. Institution need to plan very comprehensive plan, create a robust infrastructure, and see, my way of delivery in the classroom may be different and in front of camera may be different.
Yeah.
I may be more functional, I may be more expressive in the classrooms because I'm habitual to that. But once I'm in front of camera, I am afraid of that also. It may be possible like that. So such hidden and known challenges are there. But as Patidar sir has said that we must move ahead. And at least this year 20%, 30%, this much part, 30% is okay. We should go for online. but that is definitely with the robust infrastructure
Yes.
and very well trained faculty member for that one. We have to give training to the faculty members to deliver the online courses, the online content. See, I'm standing in front of camera and teaching. That is not possible. When I have to deliver online lecture, online content is different for that. I have to create the content. For example, I can connect one pad also, which we get it. Whatever I'm writing on a pad can be seen on the screen. That can be converted into the PPT and that can be displayed to the student. But to use the pad to make it the PPT, different softwares are there. This from different platforms are there. I have to integrate that. And every teacher may not be as enthusiastic like this one to do all these things. We have to develop an integrated platform for that one, and then it will have a good success.
Yeah.
May
So
I request, just a second, that since we are highly delayed, I will request each of the panelists to speak for 2-3 minutes each, and then we will end the panel with this question itself. Yeah. So, Dr. Ketan, please.
yeah, so I agree with Dr. Anand that there are a lot of challenges, but there is a way out. When the education sector was always criticized of not changing much, like the entire world is changing. For example, still we are taking 3 hours of examination, asking the students to sit individually. But what industry requires is totally different. They work in collaborative way. If you sit alone in the industry, then you'll be thrown out. It should be a group work. So I think this particular COVID is prompting them to work in a group. So that should be accepted. Possibly, as I mentioned, we were not taking online examinations, but now the online examinations, there is no choice, at least for this semester. It needs to happen. So this is a change which was anyway pending, and I think COVID is helping them out as well. I read in some particular book, which is, written by Harare, which is a very popular author, who tells that, before, 30-40 years, it was like, people were having one job. Let's say you get a job in SBI, lifelong you retire from that particular job. Now in 21st century, it is like, executives are changing the job every 5 years maybe, but the future is different. Future is like everyone will change the profession every 5 years. Right, so that much change is coming. You may be a teacher today, tomorrow you may be a content developer, day after tomorrow will be something else. So that change is anyway going to happen in 21st century, and I think COVID has given an opportunity for the teachers to change and accept particularly the students' mindset as well, that they like asynchronous learning, they like video content learning, they like open book examinations. Of course, that's not a final solution, but in this situation, this is acceptable. And then finally, once the COVID gets over, we can have a blend of both of them.
Yes.
Right.
May I request Dr. RD to respond on this?
Yeah, I would also like to say that this online mode of teaching is attractive, very lucrative, but not effective today. And we need to make it effective by creating the robust infrastructure. This is only the solution. And second, need to train the teachers first, so that they must do this online teachings willingly. Today we are doing it, we can say majburi we are doing, but in the future we should do the online teaching willingly. And I do agree with Dr. Ketan that slowly in the next semester we can add 20-30% content online, and we can adopt the blended mode of teaching even after the post COVID. One more thing I would like to add is the way the technology is changing, the way the entire world is changing, the way the industrial requirement is changing, the needs of the industry is changing rapidly, and we need to change the education system also. So we should think about the lucrative technologies, the industry 4.0, like we should come up with the education 4.0. We should involve all these technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, data analytics, cloud computing, 3D printers, robotics, and this is the demand of the industry, to prepare the students with more employability skills. And there is need to focus more on to develop the innovativeness, the creativeness, the critical problem solving ability of the students. So once the COVID will over, the institution must think to revise the curriculum according to the current need of the industry, that we are doing frequently, and involve more and more industries. There should be more industry institute interaction, and the focus should be to enhance the employability skills of the students by adopting the learning by doing, experiential learning, teaching pedagogies, which somehow many of the institutions and mostly the professors sitting over here today, we all are adopting in some way. But these are only the solutions, because according to need of the industry, we have to make changes in our education system. Then only the education institution will survive. Yeah.
Dr. Isaac, your last comments, and you can summarize the whole discussion.
See, education is something, an area where changes have not taken place much. The same classroom we had seen when I was a student, when my forefathers were also students, does not changed. Now, COVID is creating a scene wherein there could be some changes which will happen over a period of time. See, we have been talking about MOOC, our Swayam, NPTEL, all these platforms have been there, but the use of those platforms has not penetrated to a large extent. But that is happening. So many MOOC providers like Coursera, edX, they are all giving their content free now at this moment. So there could be a spur in the use of such content by the students, and the way we have been delivering the lectures might change. See, today, as I said earlier, the students have accepted it to a great extent. That doesn't mean that we will switch over from the university system to the online learning, because the university system or the classroom environment or the campus has certain things which are to be learned by the students, which is basically the teamwork, the human interaction, the peer interaction, the laboratories as the major point of R&D, where the projects, because we talk about project-based learning, which has to happen that way. So keeping that in mind, I'll tell you one more thing is that, see, the university, we have students from all over the world and all over the, country. There are a lot of students coming from different states. See, normally, if you want to interact with the parents, it was highly impossible other than sending mails and all. But this COVID has brought the mentoring more effectively. The interaction with the parents have been happening.
Yeah.
This is something which has just as good examples of what has been has come out of COVID, which is really giving changes in the character of the university system itself. So maybe that's what I said. In Hindustan, we could get the lectures delivered by industry experts, 150 lectures over the 15-20 days, which I never expected that will happen. And there are hundreds of such webinars are happening everywhere, which can be accessed by the student. Actually, the students will not find time to, he can select which he has to tune now, to listen or to participate. So that kind of a change is happening, which is good for the system, so that some change in the education system will happen. But there are certain challenges which the colleges especially the affiliating colleges, the colleges which have problem with the admission. I do not think that we will be able to admit any student from outside India.
Ravi, only one line I will add in support of Vice Chancellor Sir. That change is the only constant thing.
Yeah.
And every progress is possible beyond our comfort zone.
Yes.
So we have to do that.
COVID has pushed all of
Yes.
us out of our comfort zones now.
Yes, yes.
So I can really thank all the panel, amazing discussions, lot of learning. I personally learned a lot in the panel today. And thank you all the esteemed speakers, and thank you all the audience. And I will request all of you speakers and audience to please like and share this video on the Facebook, so that more and more people are benefited by this discussion. Lot to learn for everyone, for teachers, for our deans, and for students even, that what's going on in the higher education ecosystem. So with this, I thank you all again.
I have a last question to you. One
Okay,
question.
yeah, sure.
One question. This webinars or this kind of discussions, we have been holding it in hotels with getting people
Yes.
from everywhere. How do you
Yes,
find
yeah.
the change?
This is very interesting, I suppose. I think very focused. So the difference is, like, here we have focus. There, people would get distracted. People will start doing like chatting with each other. All that stuff starts happening on the sidelines. But
Lot
here,
of carbon footprints also saved. Otherwise, we would have traveled all the
yes,
way.
of course. Of
So do you
course.
think that this will be a better method than the earlier kind of conclaves?
I think both will exist because people would still like to meet each other in person and have a cup of coffee.
I would like
Or
to
And
have,
also,
yeah,
no?
sorry, I am interrupting. I would like to take the views of other panelists.
yeah,
What
sure.
about your take on conduction of online conference in the future?
Yeah, we can. We should.
Because online webinar is very much possible, but what
Conference
kind of
not possible, sir. Not possible. The reason is the objective of the conference is interaction. Objective of the conference is not only the present your papers, interaction and growing through the interaction and increasing the network. That is the main objective of all conferences. So I would prefer the face-to-face conference.
But the technology may provide you that.
Yeah,
it will.
technology will provide you the opportunity as well as
Difference of opinion, sir.
Thank you.
yeah, it is a topic of debate.
Yes. In next webinar, we will ask Ravi to do that.
So thank you, Dr.
So,
Devi.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No,
Thank you very
because let me end it here. That like what we have discussed in the education, that offline and online will happen together, blended. Same, it may happen in conferences. Some will happen
Yes.
online and some will happen offline.
Blended
So-
conference.
Blended conferences will happen. Yeah.
Okay.
So with this, we can close this. And
Thank you.
I look.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very
very
much.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.